You're listening to 15 Minutes of Flame with Robert Phoenix.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Robert Phoenix here. Let me just go over to YouTube and hit that little go live button. Going live in 3, 2, 1. It's the simulcast. Let me adjust my glasses. How do I look today? Relatively okay. I'm seeing worse. All right, vanity switches off. Hey, what's going on? What's happening? What's happening out there in your world, in your life? It is the 5th of September, broadcasting to you live from Flyover. And you can be experiencing this in 2 separate ways, one right here on Spreaker, and the other, of course, being over on YouTube, the live stream over on YouTube. And you can find that at one of my YouTube channels. It's the Robert Phoenix channel. Believe it or not, I have one. It is not the 11th House channel. It's a little separation of church and state. Thought it'd probably be best to do that for a while. All right, 24 hours later, and the world is a titter with Twitter. The Colin Kaepernick affair is now in full-on arson mode. It is not quite a three alarm fire, but it's getting there. Of course, everybody's weighing in on the fact that Nike decided to give Kaepernick a significant amount of money. Now, originally, the deal was that he was going to get his own product line out of this. And apparently, now, that's not the case. Nike says he's not getting any shoes or shirts. They're kind of backtracking a little bit. And apparently, Adidas and Puma were also in the market for Kaepernick. And the reason why, here's my theory. We're going to get into a little sports business, and I'm going to mix in a little kind of occult symbology and these networks that these people are part of. If you look at companies like Nike and Puma and Adidas, they are globalist in nature. Their manufacturing process does not take place in the country of origin that these companies are located. And I believe for Adidas, that would be Germany. Puma, I'm not sure where Puma is based out of. But we know Nike is based out of Oregon, Eugene, Oregon. And none of these companies, I guess they could be countries unto themselves, none of these companies actually manufacture any of their goods there. And in fact, where they are manufactured, the conditions are like slave wage labor. People work 10 hours a day, 5, 6 days a week, $1.50 an hour, if that, in order to produce these shoes. Conditions that I think Colin Kaepernick would object to. If you did a tour of the Nike facilities in Indonesia or wherever they're creating those shoes, Vietnam, Indonesia, Taiwan, you know they're not being created in China because the Chinese workers would get more. He would be appalled. He'd be appalled by the conditions. But, you know, he'll just look the other way and take Nike's money because, of course, he's an activist, and he'll use that money to help other people. Why, in fact, Colin Kaepernick's a modern-day Robin Hood. That's his new role. He's no longer playing quarterback. He will no longer play quarterback. I was writing about this earlier. If he was really in love with football, he would have pulled the ripcord on the National Football League and gone to Canada and played, like Johnny Manziel is doing. But Colin Kaepernick doesn't love football. Colin Kaepernick loves Colin Kaepernick. And right now, Colin Kaepernick is the activist. He's been elevated to a place where he becomes an icon. And this is an icon now without any product. So what did Nike hope to gain by signing Kaepernick to this deal and announcing this deal? Well, I think they hope to gain some credibility, some street cred, but the street cred and sports and social activism with sports, it's really kind of a dead end. I talked about this yesterday when ESPN decided to go full on into SJW, BLM, woke sports. It didn't work. They started to lose viewers at an alarming rate. And because of this, they wound up having to purge a huge amount of talent from ESPN. Now, somebody say, well, that's part of the new media. People don't watch as much TV anymore. Well, you're not helping your cause when you alienate probably at least 25 to 30% of your viewership. The people that actually still watch your programming. And so what did ESPN do? Well, they decided that they were going to shit can their social justice, SJW, woke, BLM, sports programming. You still get a little bit of it. I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, just a little bit. You still get a little bit of it, but for the most part, they're just like, okay, we threw in the towel. This didn't work. It's not working for us. They're never going to get it back, though, you see. They're never going to get... I look, in my own way, because I do follow sports for a number of reasons. One, it's probably the last bastion of distraction, and even that's going away. But they're going to find that, well, here's what they're going to find. These companies like Nike and ESPN are desperately trying to attain some sort of niche level with the new generation of consumers. Because they know that an older generation of consumers is, getting out of the consumption racket, essentially. So they got to figure out how they're going to get an 18, 19, 20-year-old to part with $75, $80, or have their undivided attention for 35 to 40 minutes or an hour while watching their programming and being fed an enormous amount of ads. By the way, have you noticed lately with ads on TV, it's like they're like red algae now. Because people in the past, networks could run maybe 4 to 5 ads in between breaks, programming breaks. Now I count at times they're running up to 11 or 12 ads between programming breaks, especially on talk shows, not necessarily with TV episodes, because they have a very strict kind of schedule to go by. Like you got to be in and out in a half an hour. So you might have roughly a 6.5 or 7 minute chunk of actual programming, and then that's broken up with ads all the way through. But when I watch talk shows, like a 2-hour talk show where there's more room to stuff more ads in, doesn't matter whether it's sports or not, they do. Getting up to 10 to 11. And the reason why is because, number one, they're charging less for ads now. They have to. The appetite for ads just isn't there. So if you watch something now, you almost have to pre-record it. And that's another reason why they will throw all these ads into a show that lasts about 2 hours, talk related, because they know people are pre-recording. And that what happens with that? People fast forward. They want control of their media. This is a really interesting little phenomena. I cruise all over the internet, and I don't go anywhere without an ad blocker on the internet. I learned a long time ago you got to have an ad blocker. You got to be able to manage the cookies and all that shit, right? So I go to websites, and for a while, I was not allowed to view content on certain websites because I had an ad blocker. And you know what they found? People left the website. Like, okay, fine. You're going to block me. I'm not going to stick around. So companies, websites have had to rethink that, and they ask you to remove your ad blocker or whitelist them. And if you say no, their little pop-up goes away and you get to read the content anyway. So this is a very interesting time in terms of how we participate with content and what companies are trying to do in order to get our attention and get our money and have us, divest that into their pocketbook. And we got some action, some chat action. Let's see what's going on in the chat room today. Judy Casey. She says, I think perhaps you can't see my hello. Hello. There's Lori. There's Diana. Hello. What's going on, peeps? Yep, so we're doing the old simulcast thing too, which I think is good. So Nike apparently has lost $4 billion. $4 billion from their announcement that Colin Kaepernick would have some iconic role with their product. $4 billion. That's the number that's on the street. Is it worth it? Is it absolutely worth it? And is this the kind of publicity that the left really needs? Like, I know that there are people who like Ocasio from New York, but let's be clear, she's misguided. She is totally misguided. The only way that we can fund her version of Bernie Sanders 2.0 is if there is some level of expropriation, which means seizing assets, nationalizing. This is the only way that would work. And people don't really understand that. They don't really understand the ramifications of that. Anyway, these companies are globalists at heart, and they're trying to create a globalist momentum. And they need and feed off people like Colin Kaepernick in order to do that. And they think that they'll be able to also convince some people along the way that, oh, by the way, buy our shoes, buy our shirts, whatever it is, just buy it because we're cool, we're down, we have street cred. Colin Kaepernick is involved in a lawsuit against the NFL for collusion. I was writing about this today. Let's be clear. I'll give you the timeline. I'm not going to give you the painful timeline of Colin Kaepernick, but I'll give you one really salient point on his timeline. Last season, before the season started, the owner of the Baltimore Ravens, Steve Bisciotti, probably one of the more liberal owners in the league, in a city that tends to be very liberal, in an urban demographic that Colin Kaepernick would probably really thrive in some ways. If he wanted to do his good works, there's probably no better place than Baltimore in the shadow of the Republic, right? So Bisciotti took a poll with some of his fans. He's an owner. He owns a business. He does not run a government-sponsored program. This is not what he does. He owns a business. What do you think businesses do when they want to make a change to their business? They hire a focus group. They hire somebody to lead a focus group so that person can garner information from the people